All right, so what we're going to be discussing here is the body's position that we get to the moment our front foot gets into the ground for the very first time. And this moment in time is called our foot strike. So we are going to be talking about the moment when, boom, those feet get into the ground for the very first time. And again, that's called our foot strike position. At foot strike, we want to be looking at our body in two halves. Our upper half and our lower half. At foot strike, we want our lower half to have rotated forward towards our target. And a useful thing to look at to know if we've been able to do that is the belt buckle. And is that belt buckle facing the target? If the belt buckle is facing the target, it's a pretty good chance that we have successfully rotated both the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip. When we're able to rotate the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip, as our front foot is getting into that foot strike position, we will successfully be able to get our belt buckle driving towards the target. If we specifically take a look at just the back foot of these four guys, let's watch as they are rotating that back leg, how that back foot is rotating. At this point in time, all four guys still have their entire foot flat onto the ground, and then they begin to rotate through or over top of their big toe. Their foot kind of rolls, folds over, or drives forward. And as the foot does that motion, we now shift our view to the back knee and know as the foot is rolling over the big toe, that the back knee is also rotating forward. And how those two things, the back foot and the back knee, are working together. We can also see that as we go to drive and rotate that back foot and back knee, how they do that while they gain ground down the mound and towards their catcher. So this is the difference between rotating our bodies forward, or a word for that is driving ourselves forward, versus just rotating in place. If we were just rotating in place, our bodies would not be able to gain this ground down the mound. Our bodies wouldn't be able to accelerate our power and energy down the mound. And we can then look and see that the foot has the toe, and then the heel is in front of the toe, meaning we have rotated forward. We then go to the upper body, the upper halves, from the waist up, and we want to separate that upper body from the lower body. We want the direction that our hips are facing, which is to the target, to be separate from the direction our shoulders are facing. So we notice we can see the Giants, the Padres, the Pirates, and his number. We can see the Phillies, and we can see the Brewers or Milwaukee. I'm not sure what they have displayed on their jerseys there. So the direction of their lower bodies is to the target, and the direction of their shoulders is still facing, for these right-handers, towards third base, or the direction they have been the entire time. So we rotate the lower body first, then we get into foot strike, then we rotate our upper body second. And the more that we can get those lower bodies to fully rotate to the target by the time that front foot hits the ground, and we've also been able to keep that upper body from rotating and staying back, we will have created as much upper lower half separation or hip shoulder separation as possible. And the more hip shoulder separation or upper lower half separation we can create, the more power we're going to be able to produce, and the amount of stress that's put on our arm is going to be reduced. What we're also going to notice is that almost regardless of your arm slot, if we have a true 3/4, low 3/4, high 3/4, an over-the-top arm slot, or anything in between those, we're always going to find ourselves in a relatively 90 degree angle, meaning from our elbow across to our other shoulder, we want to think is nice and even. 90 degrees in that armpit. We also want to think 90 degrees in that elbow. We want this type of arm position, that 90-90, we'll call it, at the moment of foot strike. When our arm has loaded up to this position here, at the moment of foot strike, and the upper body has not rotated yet, our body's rotation will accelerate the throw forward. If the arm is not in this 90-90 position, the body's rotation forward is going to be less than ideal and in sync with how the arm will flow after the body goes. So we're looking for this 90-90-ish position in that throwing arm at foot strike. What we can also notice at foot strike is, where is this glove at? It's in front of the body by the rib cage. We're not letting it, if we're thinking here's some water, don't drown the glove. Don't let your glove get wet. Don't drown that glove. This one right here is a little too high. Should be more towards the belt. Okay. When the glove gets finished into the body like this, it's able to help keep this front shoulder in line, meaning it's not going to open up early. Because if that front shoulder starts to open up early, that's going to start to pull the back shoulder forward early. And now we would not have separated our upper and lower halves as much, because the angle of the shoulders would begin to rotate forward, which would be more matching the angle of the hips. The final thing we're going to look at is this front leg. We see all these guys have different degrees of bend in their front legs. But what we're going to notice is that as the upper body now rotates to throw, we need to make our front leg become a firm fixture of which we can rotate around. So thinking about this front leg here turning into a flagpole. My flagpole is always going to be strongest if it's straight. Or at least I can't have my flagpole move forward while my body is trying to rotate forward. So we'll redraw these little outlines here, and we will have these guys. Oh man, that's all right. It's going to get back to it anyway. Boom. And now we'll watch as they go to throw. How that leg is locking out, stiffening up, straightening out. So that now that leg is here. Now that leg is here. Now that leg is here and here. From the bend, straightening it out. And what we can notice is as that leg locks out, stiffens up, straightens out, becomes that firm flagpole, notice how that upper body is able to catapult itself out in front and down more. Able to get out in front more. Out in front more. So that way, if we look, we can't get everyone exactly at release, but ball just out, ball just out, ball is coming out, ball is slightly a little bit more out than the bottom two. But we're able to look at this angle of the chin to the waist, back out to the front foot, boom, boom, boom. Just how out in front of themselves they're getting. And that's because of that front leg's ability to lock out. So we can see that they're starting, boom, boom, there, and there. So now it's not just the arm throwing the ball down. It's the body throwing the ball down. It's the body going down with the throw. Body accelerating down. And as the body's accelerating down, the lower half is firming up. So that way, as I need to finish all this violent rotation, I have the ability to do that around that firm front leg. I have that ability to rotate around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my back leg around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my hips around. I can finish all that violent rotation out of my back shoulder around. Giving my arm plenty of time to slow down and giving the back muscles, my scapular muscles, all the time they need to activate and slow down that rapidly accelerating arm. All right, so we got you guys here synced up with Joe Ryan to further expand on what we just learned in the big league examples from the side view to get a better idea of what we're observing from this perspective to help us understand the changes we're going to want to make in our deliveries. So just like in the big league examples, we'll get this thing paused at that moment that front foot gets in the ground, which is where we can check all of our checkpoints and see how we're going to progress through the throw, if it's going to be a healthy, accurate, powerful throw. Like we learned in the big league examples, we want that back foot, back knee, and back hip rotating and driving us forward towards our target. And we also need that front foot, front knee, and front hip to also rotate towards that target for us. So that way, at that moment that this front foot does get into the ground, that belt buckle is going towards that target, back hips driving everything from the backside forward. And the most important part of this sequence is making sure that that upper body is fighting to stay closed, to stay back, creating that upper lower half separation. The lower half rotating forward and the upper half not. We can see that all three of you guys' upper bodies are not rotated at this point in time, and they look rather similar to Joe Ryan in terms of that chin looking over that shoulder towards that target with that glove getting finished up into the body. What we can notice if we're looking over here, back foot, back knee, back hip have gone forward. Just not as much as Joe Ryan. What we notice is Joe Ryan's doing a lot better job of sitting into his back hip, like we can observe here. However, this sit of the back hip is occurring a lot because of the trunk is just tilting backwards rather than it sitting and then being able to gain ground easier. And we'll discuss that in a moment for you. But back to here. What we want to think about is just getting these legs engaged more. We got to learn how to sit into our glutes, use the back of our heel to support some of our weight as we get into this loaded position here in this back leg. And we can see you're a tall cat as it already is, and you're staying very tall. We want to get these legs engaged more. So that way, if we watch, here's that center of your pants, the center of the pants, and we're going to watch how Joe Ryan's belt buckle, bam, towards the target. Your belt buckle is going from here, still here, starting to rotate a little bit this way, and now it's here. Your belt buckle doesn't get turned all the way over until that looks more like Joe Ryan's currently, until about right there. And we can just see how much we've sacrificed in external rotation in order to get there, where Joe Ryan's external rotation is going to occur, bam, right there. So because this is just a little late firing, everything else up here is just going to start a little soon, a little early. So if we can sit in our delivery as we go out, not just straight sit and then try to go out, but we are gaining ground as we are sinking and getting into that back hip, right? It's not just so much before we start to make some ground, and now we're just holding this line here. So if we shift our focus now over to here, if we can get this to be a get it up, get it going, so that way we don't lift this leg up to the top, the leg goes almost all the way down before we break any plane with our hip. We do that same thing with your head, and I'm just using my trackpad so it's not the straightest line. But we'll see that leg comes all the way up, leg comes all the way down, reaches out all the way away from your body. So now this front leg reaching out is a big factor of your body going forward. And we can even see your glove swivel here. That swivel of your glove is indication of getting ready to finish my glove, getting ready to finish my glove. So you're already committed to finishing your glove, finishing your glove, finishing your glove before your body's even gotten any momentum going forward. If we go back to here for a reference of that, we watch that same glove swivel, glove swivel, glove swivel, glove swivel. But we can just notice how much further away from the pitching rubber he is at that moment of glove swivel. Glove, swivel, glove, swivel. So we go even further back to the beginning, and I guess I should probably more properly draw his line here. But we can just see how much ground's going to be gained during this portion of the delivery. So now your front foot is just inches away from the ground, and you haven't gone forward at all yet with the mass of your body. You've just leaned yourself back and reached that front foot out. So now the foot's in the ground already, and we haven't gone anywhere. And we can tell that because toe, heel is in a positive forward direction. Toe, heel is in a positive forward direction. Toe, heel is pretty much stacked on top of each other, going in an upward direction. Your heel is just going up, 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 where we got this back heel going forward, forward, forward. Joe Ryan's heel is going forward, forward. If your body was going forward for more time compared to your forward amount of time, we would be able to get this heel to go and rotate forward, which would get this foot a little bit further down the mound. Our stride would not be any bigger. We would just be extending away from the pitching rubber more. But the length of this would remain the same. It would just be the reach of the back leg. We then take that up to here, and we can notice, like we mentioned in the front view, this foot of yours is just kind of collapsing. It's kind of just collapsing, and then that front foot just kind of swoops open, rather than, if we're going to do that swooping out in front to the catcher versus over towards first base on deck circle. And because that front leg's doing so much of this swooping, this back leg is getting its energy wanting to go that way instead of being able to turn it over. It's getting pulled this way because that front leg is swooping that way. So front leg rotation drills to get you going forward. I think we mentioned that in the front view is going to be big, but also relearning the brain on what it feels like to move the back leg in a better sequence. The knee, and then the foot. And the foot takes us into landing. Your foot's not going to do much until after, and that's when we talked about it's just sliding underneath you instead of taking you forward. And yours is doing, instead of a slide behind you, because you have a slight cross your body stride, where his stride is going open, your slide's going to come towards us. It's going to kick out for a moment, and then it's going to slide to us. Because you're trying to do that rotation. You're trying to drive forward. You're trying to move your body forward. You're trying to push forward. You're trying to extend away from the pitching rubber, but you can't go anywhere. The brake's already applied. Right? This extension is occurring when this foot's still off the ground. Bam, bam, bam. This foot's extending when this foot's still off the ground. Bam, bam, bam. Your foot extends when this is already on the ground, so therefore it can't extend the body. So it's just got to go somewhere. Go somewhere. Go somewhere. So we continue back to the beginning, and the main reason the three of you guys are synced up is for the upper half, most specifically your arm and your shoulders at that moment of foot strike. So let's go back and let it pause there again for us. And like we talked about, we want to see a 90-degree angle in the elbow and that 90-ish degree angle in that armpit, right? These are the angles we're looking for here. And what we can see is we have a low elbow, and I believe this is something that we mentioned in our early assessment on the spot there. We can see the same thing over here, just a little bit of a low elbow, and we can see the same thing, a low elbow. Now, these two low elbows are occurring because we just got this tilt still coming. You still got this tilt. Why do we still have this tilt? Well, we should still have this tilt because you should still be striding. We haven't leveled it out yet because your body hasn't really gone anywhere. So you still have this upward force that you're trying to keep that upper body back. You're trying to keep this upper body back so you have this angle of your shoulders. And now because you haven't had time from staying back, the purpose of staying back is to then go forward. And we can see you were staying back so much and you went down so far for so long that you don't have the time to go forward because that foot hits the ground so quickly. So now you're still in this upward angle, resulting in that low elbow, which is now going to result, and when you go to throw, everything launching way up. And that's why you saw in your front video, you had such that big tilt with your head off to the side and this arm getting shot way up here, and this ball getting released in line with your head. When we need, and it's very tough to track the ball on Joe Ryan, but here's the ball. It's right here. See, that's where it's coming out of his hand. It's right where I marked that. And if we took that down, that's getting out in front of his front foot at release. We look at over here, ball's coming out of the hand. It's out in front of the front foot. And because your shoulders were so up, when your front foot hit the ground, once the front foot hits the ground, it's time to throw. And if your shoulders are angled up, the elbow is going to really rotate up more than it needs to, more than your actual arm slot is. And now that ball is getting released with a lot of upward force. And we got to hope we can keep a fingernail on it long enough to redirect it down. Because we can see as this ball's coming out, we lose track of it in the screen because it's going upwards. And we need this throw to be going on a out and down trajectory. So learning how to gain ground during the leg lift and not waiting till the foot is as far away from your head as possible and you are as loaded into your back hip as possible, and then try to strengthen your way out. There's a select few guys that can do that, and they're extremely athletic and extremely strong. And they are extremely much older than you. And they get paid extremely exorbitant amounts of money to do it. So we need to learn how to gain ground during this leg lift. Gain ground as that leg is still up. Body going forward, not just down, down, down. All right, and same thing that we just discussed with these shoulders on this upward angle. Because on an upward angle, we're going to get some either up with it, or we're going to get a little bit of this draggy, and now it's a push. Right, that arm is never laying back into external rotation when the shoulders are to the side. Bam! We're getting just this little bit. And now it's a push of this baseball, which adds a lot of stress to the arm. So we got to learn how to get these shoulders if we're going to be here coming out and not as level, right? We got a little bit. You got a bunch. You're just tilting back, popping that butt out, which is fine, but we got to be able to drive it forward. And because that front foot just opens it up, these never get the chance to start to go forward. They just keep going in this direction on this upward angle. And now things got to get flung around and pushed. A lot of pushing to try to make this throw happen. So let's play that one more time for you guys. All right, we got you guys up here with Ben Joyce to get into more details about your pitch and delivery from what we just learned with all those big league examples. So we'll first pause everybody at their moment of foot strike. I've slowed Joyce down as best I could to sync up with you guys here. And the main reason the three of you guys are paired together is because of your arm's position at this moment in time. Like we learned with the big league examples, and we'll continue to expand upon that here, we want to be in this 90-degree angle in our elbow, and we also want that 90-degree angle in our armpit. Okay? What we're going to notice with all three of you guys is that the distance that the baseball is from our head is a little far. And we're getting that because we're just getting a little bit of a big angle in our arm. Okay. We are also having this baseball face second base. You guys got a lot of guys on your team that do this, and I've not seen this in this high of numbers in maybe ever. When we throw the baseball, we need to think about this for a second. Your chest is going to be facing the direction you throw, which eventually will be to the target. So if the position your chest is in now will eventually be forward, we also want that baseball to be facing the same direction that our chest is facing now. So that way when our chest rotates forward, our hand will also be facing forward. But what we're going to see is if the ball is facing second base and your chests are facing third base, and when we throw, our chest will go from third to home, our hand would go from second to third, and we're going to have to do something different with our wrist and our hand to get it to also get to home while our chest is going 90-degree turns. Your hand and your wrist is going to have to go 180-degree turns. So your wrist and your hands are having to do something extra that we don't want them to do. And that's going to slow things down. So what we want to think about is you guys all have longer arm paths and strokes. Like your arms get very straight and far away from your bodies very quickly. That's why I selected Ben Joyce. He's also a guy that gets his arm straight and away from him rather quickly, right? And what you guys are going to notice is that all of our arm strokes are a little bit different. Everyone's got something unique to them. But even with this big, long arm stroke of Ben Joyce, notice how as this ball loads up, his forearm is facing the same direction as his chest. Yeah, his arm is loaded up way back in his scap, way back towards first base, way behind his head. But the forearm is still facing us. And we can see your guys' forearms have twisted and gone to second. And because of that, the hand just stays back instead of it being more here, right? If we drew shoulder to shoulder, we kind of have a little bit low of an elbow, and then we got a little bit wide of a hand or forearm, and then we got this hand facing backwards. All right, we got the good 90 degrees in the armpit here, but we can see this arm is just dragging and late and behind, and it's just facing second base. Shoulders aren't necessarily in a bad spot, but they are in a little bit of an upward tilt still. And then, like we have been discussing, this baseball is facing second base. So now as all of you guys come around to throw, like we mentioned, this hand is going to have to do something extra to get back in line. And what we notice, if we just watch this one in particular, everything's having to get around the hand. Everything's having to get the hand back around. Uh-oh, what's going on? That's a new feature. Sorry, I got new operating system on the computer, and some things are new here. So we're going to watch a lot of, again, this getting around, trying to get things back where they need to be. And if I just pulled up, I'm not going to do this for any of the other groups, but I'll do this for you guys real quick. If we just literally, let me get to a group of people that you would know. Okay. Oops. More buttons. All right. Here's a good chunk of names that you've hopefully heard of before. All right. And we just go, Julian Meyer, he's probably not a guy you've heard of. Dylan Cease, that's definitely a guy. He's got a short arm path, very compact arm stroke. But what we're going to notice is at the moment of foot strike, yeah, it may be loaded way back behind his head, but he's still in a 90-90, and that baseball is in the same position that the chest is. Spencer Strider. All right, at that moment of foot strike, that forearm and chest and ball are facing the same direction so that everything can just get rotated smoothly and together. I don't need to see him twice. We don't have any lefties here, even though it doesn't really matter. This may be hard to see with the haziness. All right, but here we come into that moment of foot strike, and that forearm and hand are facing the same direction that that chest is, so that that ball is facing third base. All right, moment of foot strike, and same thing, that forearm is facing the same direction as his chest. Another lefty, won't waste your time. Don't have the angle to see it, won't waste your time. All right, so see the same thing here as that hand's coming up. Bam. Ball, forearm, chest. Ball, palm, forearm, chest. Ball, palm, forearm, chest. And that's just what helps keep this ball closer to the head. All right, and now we can just see that big distance from the head. And if we ever watched any figure skating in the Olympics, we know if you're trying to rotate as fast as you possibly can, long, far away from your body limbs are not what we want. We need to pull those in tight. We need to get this glove coming in tight. We need to get this into a 90-90 and then just rotate the hell out of the shoulders. Another thing we're going to notice for the three of you guys is when we get into that moment of foot strike and then we're about to come through with the throw, we do a good job here of getting this chest out in front, But what we can see is because that arm was so far behind the head, the arm is just a little late getting through. And now we don't get as much of the throw to be really, yeah. And that's what, when I was telling you, like, you got good moving parts, but we just need to figure out how to be explosive with them. And like we talked about with the comparison to the figure skater, when this is out here, it's tough for us to be explosive with it. You got the good angle, but because the arm is so late coming through, you really got to continue to try to work to make that explosiveness, that hard energy that you're doing, go long enough so that by the time the ball does get out in front, you still have some of that energy left to rotate it around. So we just need to learn how to, when it's time to bring this up, keep the elbow here and bring it up to there. All right, bring the hand up to you versus bringing the elbow down to the hand. All right, this elbow's already up. Your elbow's already up. Bring the hand to it versus bringing your elbow down so that the hand gets above it. And that's why that stays back on you. All right, so all three of us have the same issue. It's just getting there a little different for each one of us. We can see this little jiggle wiggle we got going on here. Bam, bam. That's also coinciding with your glove's finish. But this arm is so far back here, it should be a lot closer to up here. And that's why by the time you start to get up there, bam, we're just not able to keep it going. By the time you get to a 90-90, it's here, but you're already starting to rotate through, and this foot's been in the ground for a long time. So we're going to need to work a lot of arm path, arm timing, arm patterning drills with you guys so that way we can get this 90-90 loaded back into our back muscles, not loading it back towards second base and getting our hand to face the ball towards second base. We want it relaxed, facing the same way as our chest, so that when our chest rotates, can bring the hand with it instead of the hand being delayed because it's been so far behind the rest of the body. All right, we got you guys up here with Garrett Cole to further expand upon your mechanics from what we've already learned from the front view, but most importantly from what we just got done learning with the big league examples from the side view. We will first pause you guys at foot strike. I've tried to slow Garrett Cole down to match you guys as best as I could. So like we learned for you guys from your front views, these upper bodies are significantly rotating forward before that front foot is getting into the ground, into the ground, into the ground, into the ground, into the ground. So we just separate those two halves like we did with those big leaguers. And we can see that, yeah, your lower bodies are rotating to the target, but so are your upper bodies, right? We want to see this 90-90, being able to see the logo of that jersey with your chin looking over your shoulder with that glove finishing up into that armpit. Your guys' chins are looking over nothing. Your gloves are fully finished into your body because the back shoulder dictates that it needs to be, because the back shoulder's already coming through. Your arms are fighting not to throw because they know it's very difficult to throw the baseball if my front foot's not in the ground. Now that you guys' front foots are in the ground, it's time to throw. But what we're going to see is, boom, your guys' baseballs are just about to come out of your hands. Garrett Cole is feeding his throw now. He's feeding his arm. His chin is able to go towards the target. His chest is able to get going towards the target. Everything resulting in energy going towards the target. That chin and chest getting out over top of this knee. Through release. Extending that arm out in front. So now here comes the baseball out of the hand. As his chest and firm front leg is out in front. We can see, because like we talked about earlier for you, bud, your back knee is so low to the ground, and it's only going to get lower as you go to throw, because how am I going to create any power? Well, I got to just go forward now. And forward's going to result in this going down lower, lower, lower. I'm surprised you don't got rug burns on your knees and shins from how close we're getting down to this mound here. And we can see as we're throwing, because you're almost in a near 90-degree angle by the time this front leg gets into the ground, it's going to be a very tough leg to get firm on and rotate our body around. And what we're going to notice for you is the 90-ish degree angle that your front knee is in. As we proceed out of foot strike here, it's only going to stay in that bend. And in fact, we watch that kneecap, it's going to start to go forward on us. So all of our body weight from the back that's now going to the front through this rotational movement that we're doing isn't able to get redirected up to the throw. Because we're not able to now rotate and throw around a firm front leg. Your leg doesn't get firm until it goes and takes your body up away from itself. So hopefully that's a little bit easier for you to see from the front view than now that you got to see the side view of that. That kind of springing up and flinging around. So if we now shift over to here, what we're going to notice is obviously the same thing that we talked about, but that front shoulder is already rotating before this front foot gets all the way into the ground. One thing that's going to help you is rotating this front leg forward. We can see your front foot here is just going to hit on the inside part first. Right? It's just going to hit inside part of the foot, inside part of the foot. Then it's going to roll to the outside part of the foot. If we can learn how to rotate the front leg by doing in the mechanical drill playlist, front leg rotation drill, we will be able to get this front foot to land like we see Garrett Cole's front foot landing flush into the ground. His foot's in a very similar posture position as yours is right now, but he rotates it forward. Rotates it forward. You kind of just start to rotate it forward, and then it just gives up and just lands sideways, and then it gets forward. So because it takes so long to get into the ground and forward, these shoulders have come all the way through now. Now try punching someone that's standing in front of you from this position versus punching someone from this position. Or imagine trying to hold a bat right here and hit versus holding a bat back here and hitting, right? We want to be able to stay back to rotate forward. You guys have already begun to rotate forward before it's time to throw. Foot down, then throw. Right? One thing that's going to help over here with that is we're trying to stride so far. We don't need to stride this far. You stride this far, this knee's this low, this knee's this bent. We're this low to the ground. It's a very difficult position to be in. We need to be taller. We need to be landing much shorter than what you are. I would say toe being there, heel being there. So that way this back knee is just not falling down, 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 but actually rotating us forward. So we need to really think about staying tall. Yeah, we want to load in this back hip and all, but we're getting into this position, which is very difficult to power out of. This is a much better position. This is a much better position to try to power out of. So we're going to want to be stronger on your back leg. If we get way down here, that's not as strong as if we were a little bit taller. Think about keeping this knee back so that way it's not collapsing in early. That's going to be another big key, right? We can see this knee is staying back. This knee is staying back. And we can see your knee is very quickly and early collapsing in, collapsing in, collapsing in. So then when you go to rotate it, man, it's so close to the ground that you're pretty much just rotating it into the ground. And then also with this big reach of this front leg puts you into a tough angle rather than a more manageable angle to be able to throw and be firm around instead of popping up to get firm and then getting around and then having your head to the target so when a line drive comes back at you, you can't see it, pops right in the back of the head, and then you're out for months and months, right? You need to be able to keep that eye on the target all the way through the end of the throw so we're ready. And because you're getting all this popping up and then finally trying to get everything to finish, it's happening so late that it's happening too much at the end instead of happening more here, and just being able to finish it. That's a little risque.